Listen up or run for cover. Dropping knowledge from the people who have it to the people who need it. The real Robin Bradley Bombs is dropping
What it is, Brad Lee back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. Today in the studio, folks, I've got an actual treat for you. Kevin Harrington, I know you know who he is. He's been around a long time. He was an original shark on Shark Tank. He's got, a consulting company that consults all the big wigs. He's got the As Seen on TV brand. He's been around. Everyone knows who he is. And if you don't, you're living under a rock. You got to go check him out. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Hey, Brad. Thanks. Great introduction. Appreciate that.
Man, pleasure. And I'm really glad you came on the show. Lately I've been having a lot of conspiracy people and political people and various things that aren't necessarily, entrepreneurial, but you and most people listen to me for many reasons, but mainly entrepreneurial. So I'm glad you're here to share some knowledge. Now, obviously, when we drop bombs, you might hear this. That just simply tells the bomb squad to pay attention to what you just said because it's very important. Don't get alarmed. Don't get alarmed. Where are you at right now?
I live in St. Petersburg, Florida. Been here 26 years. And I'll say this, last year before COVID, I traveled about 225 days. This year, about 4.
Do you like that? Do you like that? Or did you like the road?
I thought I was going to hate it, but it's been pretty good. Been a lot of great stuff that's happened. I mean, I've had a couple. I've invested in a ton of deals over the years. Few of them are bust. They're out. They're hurting. COVID was a really tough thing for a lot of companies. But I've had a couple other ones that have just shot to the moon. So it's all about how prepared were these folks for something like COVID, and certain kinds of industries have obviously fared a lot better.
Yeah, especially tech, big tech.
Tech, yeah. I say this: folks that are in the business of direct to the consumer, which is, I'll never forget when I go all the way back to the early 80s when I was, I got into this direct to the consumer business. It was 10, 12 years before Amazon ever started. And I was telling my mom, why I wanted to quit college and this and that. And she's like, what? You're going to be selling products direct to the consumer? You mean competing against the Walmarts of the world? And I'm like, well, that's the plan. She's like, go back to school. Forget that, So, who knew? But, the model of, the whole As Seen on TV space, people pitch me a product. I license it. I put the money up, produce the shows, take it to TV and take it to retail and take it around the world. And we didn't need, yes, eventually we did deal with retail, but that direct to the consumer aspect was the power that we loved on that in that industry. So when COVID first hit, tens of millions of people were unemployed, and all of a sudden you've got this, people they don't know what to do. They don't have any income. Businesses were shutting down, et cetera, et cetera. So those that did not have a direct to the consumer strategy ahead of time they should have, and they needed to get moving on it ASAP. Because like you said, where's the action? Tech. And this is the direct to the consumer business. Shopify went from $300 to $1,000 during COVID, because they were supercharging a lot of people's shopping carts all around the world.
Before I heard of you, like what were you doing? Like, let's go back a little bit, because obviously as you got on Shark Tank, I think you were on there a season or two. You might have done kind of revisit it. But who was Kevin before all this? Jumping out of high school, Were you born rich?
No. Okay. So I'm one of 6 kids, grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. And my dad was a bartender raising 6 kids. So there was no extra money around. There was no money for me. I was the 4th of 6. So my dad told me, when I turned 11, he said, "Hey, I saved up enough money to open up Harrington's Irish Pub, and I'd love for you to come in and hang out and help me out." So I was washing dishes and doing this, and then at the end of the day, he'd say, "Okay, come on back here." He was my mentor. He's like showing me, he's counting the money, and he's showing me, okay, this is the bar receipts, the food receipts, and this and that. I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable. So then I was dealing with some of the suppliers bringing stuff in. So he had me doing other things. But basically, he said, "Kevin, you need to own your own business because I'm not going to pay for your high school. I'm not going to pay for your college." So I started a driveway sealing business, sealing asphalt driveways in high school, doing 10 jobs a week in the summer. Then I got to college and I needed a full-time business. So I was able to secure a list of all the new homeowner transactions in Cincinnati, Ohio. We'd outbound telemarket them. I was 18 years old, and we sold them heating and air conditioning, furnaces, air conditioning systems. But what we did, they just bought a new house. We said, "Hey, welcome to the neighborhood. Don't turn that furnace on. It's a dangerous appliance. We're going to come out, clean it absolutely free, and do a safety check." And boom, while I was in college, my business was growing. I had 25 employees by my sophomore year, and we were doing over $1 million a year in sales back in the this was the mid 70s, 75, 76, 77. So I'm now an old entrepreneur because I used to be a young entrepreneur. So anyway, that was heating and air conditioning. And then I was making money and I'm sitting there. I bought cable TV, bought a house, bought cable television. And when cable first hit in my house, it was 30 channels. CNN News, HBO Movies, MTV Music. I got to channel 30 and it was Discovery, and there was nothing there. So they just had these colored bars on the screen. I called the cable company and I said, "Hey, I love the 29 channels I'm getting, but I'm paying for 30. Where's channel 30? They said, "Oh, you must have been on there during the downtime. It's only an 18-hour-a-day channel because it's a new channel. They don't have enough money to produce 24 hours a day." And so I said, "Great, I've got an idea. I want to put something into that 6 hours of unsold downtime, right?" And they said, "Come on down and talk to us." And so cut a deal to start throwing products in there. And we started with kitchen products and, the Food Saver, Ginsu knives, Jack Lalanne's juicer, Billy Mays, George Foreman, Tony Little Fitness. These were the early days. I had Ascena TV Inc. and AscenaTV.com. And by the way, AscenaTV.com was such a powerful website. Without me spending one dime of advertising, it was generating tens of millions of dollars in sales with huge profits because there was no advertising cost. And so that was one of my businesses. But my company went from zero to $500 million in sales. And we went public on the New York Stock Exchange. So this was back in the 90s.
So shit just went good from you from day one, sounds like.
I had some ups and downs along the way because this is what I was investing in products. So, I've only told you about the winners so far, right? For every winner, I had 3 failures. So, but that's the model of that business. You're not going to win on everything. And it's okay to have 3 failures. If you I say fail fast, fail cheap. If I can fail fast for 10 grand a piece and I have 3 losers, I lost 30 grand. Then a winner hits 30 million in sales, 50 million. I did Tony Little's Gazelle. That product was so huge. It was, Tony, we created a $1.5 billion a megastar with Tony Little, the Gazelle, the power tapes that we did with him, power videos, then the ab isolator and all the different things. And so, it's you make money on the winners, right? Those you got to ride out. It's just like sort of the movie business. You can have a movie or two that doesn't work. Although the problem with the movie business is so expensive. Who wants to? You're going to shoot a movie and put 50 million into it and have 3 losers there. Well, then you got $150 million down the tubes. Here, we learned how to do things very inexpensively in the testing process. And by the way, nowadays with Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, We test on the internet. We don't even use TV to test anymore.
Is it a lot cheaper to do it that way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because TV, the problem you have is the airtime's expensive. In the old days, I mean, I'll give you I give you an analysis of that deal I did with Discovery. So Discovery, they're like, okay, make us an offer for the time. And we settled, we agreed. I said, I'll give them $1,000 a day for 6 hours, right? So do the math. That's a lot of time for $1,000 on a national cable network. It was back in the mid '80s, so this was not. They didn't have the distribution they have today, but it was generating over $20 million in sales for a $365,000 airtime budget. Okay, so we were doing very well. That's when we ended up deciding, hey, we got to go public here, because I didn't have a lot of capital when I started. And even the capital I was making, I was plugging back into the business, right? More inventory. And then we needed to get lines of credit. And this is where the book comes in, the Mentor to Millions book. My dad was great to get me started, driveway sealing, heating and air conditioning, restaurants, whatever. But when I got into bigger business deals, when I'm running tens of millions of dollars in sales on TV, I needed lines of credit for inventory because I didn't have the cash. I mean, we plugged our profits in and bought as much as we could. But if if you had another 100,000 pieces, it would go like that, but you don't have the money to buy the 100,000 pieces. What are you going to do? I got a mentor, a finance mentor. And this guy was a former bank president. He got me $3 million line of credit and didn't charge me a dime. He mentored me on how to go get money for my business. And because I had no clue how to talk to banks.
Well, here's my question on that, because I've always wondered about that. People say, I see people on Shark Tank, they're talking about, well, I need the investment to buy the product. If you're selling, why can't you use the money you collected to pay for the products? Like if I sold 1 million units, even if I didn't have them ready, I sold 1 million units, now use that money to buy the units.
You can't cash the credit cards until you ship. The contract you have with MasterCard, Visa, American Express. I mean, hey, look, if they let anybody just go out, get a bunch of orders, cash a bunch of credit cards, there'd be a lot of billionaires living in offshore who just took the money and ran and never fulfilled. So when you get the orders and you get the order, you have the credit card, but you have to get the inventory and you have to ship it before you're allowed to cash that card. So that created the massive problem. I was sitting with 40,000 orders of a $60 product with no cash to be able to order the inventory. So I'm like, I'm going to have to refund. I'm going to have to just tell people, I say refund, I didn't cash it, but meaning not going to be able to cash the card at all. And I had paid for the media though. So this was the bind that I was in, because what was happening is the order flows were coming in so way more than we expected, right? And so that's when, and the first banks when I talked to the banks, they didn't want anything to do with it, because they want security. They don't want inventory as security. But when I got a really smart banker to talk to them and show them and put my business plans together the right way, we got a $3 million line of credit. And then we 10x the company to $500 million in sales. And
the rest is history. Now,
pretty much. Then I got on Shark Tank. Okay. We went public, and I had millions of shares, and the stocks were, $20 a share and stuff. So it's, I had a nice payday, and chips off the table, and that was back in the '90s, early '90s.
What's the most like liquid cash? Because a lot of times you see these billionaires and multimillionaires, this guy's worth, $600 million. People don't realize that's not sitting in the bank. That's assets, shares, and a lot of times shares that would need to be sold. So it's not real. It's not real. What's the biggest chunk of liquid cash you've ever had at one time?
Well,
And what it make it feel like?
I've got ex-wives maybe listening and things like that, so I got to be a little careful. But tens of millions of dollars for sure. I mean, I never was sitting on hundreds of millions in cash, but I mean, I've been very liquid for many years in after various public companies. I mean, that public company went from $1 to $20. I had another one that went from $1 to $18. Just recently, I mean, this will blow your mind. Here is a product. Where did it go? Right here. Okay. This is a company that I joined. Have you ever heard of Celsius?
Yes. My buddies are hooked on that shit.
Okay. I'm one of the kind of like founding board members of this company 6 years ago. I joined this company. When I met the chairman, the stock was 10 cents a share. I did my deal, got in, I got a bunch of stock and joined the board. And it was 22 cents when I got mine. Today, the stock is $21. And we've grown this company to $1.4 billion in sales. So, I mean, this is my business model. I sit on 9 boards. I consult. Last night I had dinner with a group. They handed me a certificate, 1 million shares of stock. Now, some stocks are trading at 30 cents and not $20, but no one's going to give you 1 million shares of something at $20. But you got to, if you get there at the right time, that's how it goes.
Yeah, I was going to notice, like you recognize opportunity. It sounds like as I'm listening to you, you recognize, hey, wait a minute, I could go in and tell Discovery and sell those 6 hours. Now, how do you recognize opportunity? If I'm sitting here listening to this, man, how do I recognize opportunity?
Well, there is some, sixth sense about entrepreneurs. I mean, because Brad, you're around a lot of people, you hear a lot of deals, you hear a lot of pitches. One of the things that I do and what I was doing and where we really made big money in as seen on TV and the infomercial business, I was sitting with a library of 100 infomercials. And so I recognized the opportunity of the unsold space and capitalized on it. Now, many other people saw that there was airtime not being used, but they didn't do anything. I did. So one of the big things is taking action. Okay. So I have to tell you, I get so many people, they come to me, I get off stage. Oh, well, I had a great idea 5 years ago, but somebody knocked me off a couple of years later. I mean, I'm like, well, in other words, you didn't do it, but they did. It's like, well, you didn't take action. So, I mean, that's critical. But I mean, here I was sitting with this library of 100 infomercials. And I said to myself, they all had gone up and they'd gone down. Just like, when a movie comes out in the old days before the theaters got closed, a movie would come out, it's huge, it's everywhere. And then all of a sudden it's gone. They got to take it out of the theaters. It's a bell-shaped curve. But I said to myself, I'm sort of like the movie business. It goes up and it goes down because it's not going to last forever, right? In the theaters, but for me on TV. But I said, well, wait, what does the movie industry do? They go to Europe, they go to Asia, they go to Latin America. So I started going with the movie industry to the Cannes Film Festival, which is where all the international people come to buy movies. Well, they were also going to see my infomercials. And I wasn't selling them the infomercials. I was giving them the infomercials to run. And I said, you don't have to pay me. In fact, every time you run my infomercial, I'll pay you. And they said, wait a minute, we're buy programming. We don't, nobody pays us to run a movie. Well, I've got a cooking show. And at the end of the cooking show, we're going to offer people a chance to buy the Chinese wok and the knife sets and all the things they've been cooking with during the show. And we're going to give you a percentage of those sales. Oh, I get it. Great concept. We went from one country to 100 countries in 18 months. Japan, Saudi Arabia, Germany, Latin America, Buenos Aires. I traveled the world setting up all these deals. I spent 10 years on an airplane in 100 countries. And I'm telling you, you name the country just about, I've been there. And so we had all of Europe, all of Latin America, all of the Middle East, 20 Arabic countries in the Middle East, Asia, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, etc. We were the pioneers that took infomercials and as seen in TV all around the world, starting 30 plus years ago.
Dude, sounds like, this book's worth its weight in gold. Mentor to Millions. You've had a lot of experience and a lot of angles. If somebody wants the book, go to kevinmentor.com to pick up that book. And by the way, if you get it now, are you still giving away the free mentoring?
Yeah, we're still giving away 30 days. Yeah.
Guys, 30 days free mentoring with Kevin Harrington. I'm telling you, the dude can look at a business, recognize what you need to do. He's got relationships up the yin yang. Relationship capital is pretty valuable, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Nowadays it is. In the old days, I was at the right place at the right time for filling those downtimes of the TV networks, right? That was my niche. It wasn't just Discovery. I got Lifetime. I got Nashville. And then I went around the world. I'll never forget the first time I went to Saudi Arabia. I was in Jeddah meeting with Sheikh Salah Kamel, 1994. And I walked into his office. He had 5 channels that ran 24 hours a day. And they all went dark at midnight, came back on at 6 a.m. And I laid this out to him. And I said, look, I got a proposal for you. We're going to, and if you don't take it, one of your competitors will, because there's another one called Orbit. And he says, wait a minute, you don't want to do business with Orbit. I'm going to be your partner. It turned into him selling me all of a sudden. And then, so I'm qualifying who I'm going to select. And he's like, well, how's it work? I said, I'll give you all these infomercials. We're going to dub them in Arabic. All you do is put them on and you're going to get tons of cash every day. And he's like, where do I sign? And he did. And that became a huge market for us. Dubai, Saudi Arabia, all the countries all through there, Yemen and all of them. So, but we did this in each country. In Sweden, it was the Kinnevik group. In Italy, it was the Marcucci family. In Germany, I forget the name of the group we dealt with there, but I think it was Kirshner. But a lot of these countries, Rupert Murdoch, the Sky Channel, we did a deal with Rupert Murdoch also, 1990, went up on Sky Channel all across Europe. So, I've been pounding the streets for 40 years as an entrepreneur. And hey, there was a bankruptcy along the way. So I'm not going to tell you that I was the smartest guy, but the good news is that was way back, when I got, when we didn't know what the heck we were doing, and you learn from your mistakes. So this is why I tell people you need a mentor. Sometimes it can be different things. I needed a finance mentor way back to help me raise capital, but I still have mentors. I'm sure, I know you've got some mentors, Brad. You reach out, you talk to people, you look for some advice. It's a good thing to have.
Yeah, I'm thinking about giving you 1 million shares of Lightspeed, dude. I'm still wondering why Lightspeed isn't $1 billion. Remember when you were at the office, I said, hey, if I showed up on Shark Tank, would you invest it? You said, hell yeah. I just don't know how to do all that shit, so I've always just struggled it with myself. I should have gotten a mentor in a lot of cases. My question is, what's the difference between a mentor and a coach? You hear coaching and then you hear mentoring. What's the difference?
Yeah, coaches normally charge. So, I do coaching, I do mentoring. And now, sometimes I've mentored people. Mark Tim and I, the co-author of the book, I mentored him. And it's funny because Zig Ziglar mentored me way back, and Zig had mentored Mark. And so when Zig passed away, we were both talking to Tom Ziglar and his son, and we said, what are you going to do with Zig's content? This guy's created, 35 books. He's got thousands of hours of videos and audios and, Automobile University. And Tom said, Zig, he mentored both you guys. I got to introduce you. And then I started mentoring Mark. I didn't charge him anything, but Mark is now on his way to his first $100 million company. And so Zig tells the story of I'll tell it real quick. If you take a bunch of fleas and put them in a glass jar and put a lid on there, the fleas are trying to jump out, right? and they just keep jumping and jumping. They hit the top and they fall down. They hit the top, they fall down. Then a day later, take the top off. The fleas are still jumping and to the height of where it was and coming right back down. They don't even know they can get out because if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always got, right? Well, Mark Tim said, Kevin, I can build a $10 million business, but you built 20 $100 million businesses. Tell me how to do it. And we worked it through, and now he's on his way. Part of the problem was Mark wanted to control everything himself. So when he was building the business, he was adding employees and adding space and adding this. And I said, no, I built my business on transactional relationships, phone centers, fulfillment centers, banking, order processing. You can't scale if you're adding and adding and adding overhead and people as well as you can if you use transactions. So that's where Mark is shining now and off to the races. We wrote the book together and all is good.
Folks, if I was you, I'd get that book, kevinmentor.com, get the free mentoring. Next question, because I know you got to go. You don't have a lot of time, but let me ask you. Guthy Ranker, was that a big competitor of yours, or did you do business with them?
No. So I started back in the early 80s, and I was doing all the kitchen shows. And, like I said, from into Food Saver and Ginsu's and all that kind of stuff. And then one day I got a phone call from Greg Ranker, and he said, hey, Kevin, he says, I've been following all the infomercials you're doing. I'm getting into personal development space. And Greg Ranker's first big winner was Tony Robbins. And so Greg and I collaborated at that point, but Guthy Ranker, it was Bill Guthy, Greg Ranker. They were my competitor, but very friendly competitors. In fact, Greg and I got together one day and we founded the ERA, the Electronic Retailing Association. And it was a nonprofit association. We went into Washington, D.C., we hired management people and a law firm to build the association for the SEM and TV industry. And so now I'm going to tell you that Greg Ranker is a smarter guy than me, okay? And let me tell you why. First of all, he's a multi-billionaire, all right? And I haven't hit the billion mark. I'd love to, but it's still out there for me. But Greg focused after Tony Robbins and a few other projects in fitness. He focused on beauty. And so his first big winner was Proactive Skincare. Now, when I sold a Tony Little Gazelle, people only bought one, never another one. They barely used the first one probably, right? But when people bought Proactive, they bought it, some people, for the next 5 years. But the average turn was 8 turns. So he really developed the continuity aspect of the SEM and TV industry and became the beauty guru. And let's talk about it. Beauty, Lancome, all the big companies, they're huge. Estee Lauder. It's because of continuity and reorders and all of that. People don't reorder gadgets. And yeah. So yes, I've made money, but I'm the gadget guy more so. I mean, I've done a few beauty deals, but not very many. And now I just don't even touch it because I don't have the expertise. But that's what Greg did. And at one point, Greg and I were kind of on similar levels. I had a $500 million business. He had a $300 million business. He took it to the moon, and he's now over $1 billion. And he sold Proactive for $2 billion.
Wow.
That's one product. Still owns all of his other stuff. He's a smart guy.
I went there one time. I got an opportunity. This was a long time ago. I was pitching them basically virtual training with passwords. And by the way, I mean, this was 15 years ago when no one even really did it.
Wow. You know what? Your time.
Yes, I was. And unfortunately, but fortunately it's catching up. So I'm at Guthy Ranker's thing. I'm obviously, wow, this place is unbelievable. I didn't talk to those guys, but somebody there told me people don't want nothing. In other words, we're not going to do it, Brad, because people want to receive something in the mail. People want to touch something. Now I'm thinking to myself, well, tell iTunes that because dude, billions are being sold without anybody getting anything. So were they wrong or are they still right in that industry?
Well, let's put it this way. In that industry, it's been a little tough because think of Home Shopping Network, QVC. Okay. The women are sitting at home. They're watching hours and hours of this stuff, right? And so they get satisfaction out of seeing something, ordering it, getting it in the mail, opening it, and wearing it, and putting it on their finger if it's a ring, or the beauty on their face. It's a instant gratification kind of a thing after you get the product, right? But the music industry is a little different. I mean, I used to sell music, but on TV we would send them CDs or discs. And back in the early days, we actually sold cassette tapes. In the very beginning, I was sending cassette tapes. So the iTunes business model is a whole different concept from, say, the home shopping QVC as seen in TV space, where people look for that gratification.
Yeah. Last question, because I know you got to run. What if I'm an entrepreneur sitting at couple of employees, I'm making decent money, but I can't seem to break, 7 figures. Like, I just can't seem to figure out how to scale or blow up. What would your mentoring tell me just to how to scale the business and take it to another level?
So one of the things we talk quite a bit about, because a lot of times people that I mentor, they're really not going to be able to make it on their own to begin with. If they're a startup, for example, you're talking about someone that just can't get there, right? A lot of times I say you got to create some amazing partnerships. And so who has what you need and that they can bring value to the table. So, I'll give you a good example. I was sitting with a bunch of guys. We were launching a mobile app, and they said, okay, well, how do we get millions of users? And I said, well, let's think really powerfully. Yes, we can go buy them, and they're going to cost $10 a user, a download. But what if we went to Sprint, who has 1 million new phones they're selling every month, and partner with them? Let's get them to put that mobile app on every phone they sell. We'll make them a partner. We'll give them a percentage of the gross. And my team says, that's amazing. Can you think you can make that happen? I said, well, I'm going to go find out. I got in, had a meeting with Marcelo Clar at Sprint, the CEO. And during the meeting, in 20 minutes, the guy gets up and says, this is the most unbelievable idea I've ever heard. We're going to do it. He gets his lawyer in there. We ended up signing a letter of intent about 2 weeks later, and they put us on 6 million Sprint phones, our mobile app. So it isn't always what you can do. Sometimes you got to bring in some reinforcements. You got to bring in people that you can. I called Russell Brunson 8 or 9 years ago for help, long before he ever started ClickFunnels, because I was getting into this digital space, didn't know jack crap about it. And I'm like, wow, I need some help. I reached out. And so this is why what people need to do, put their hand up and say, I need some help, and then find the right people, and whether it's mentoring or partnerships, getting the right people in there is the key thing, and getting some other eyeballs to take a look at where you're going, because I can take a look at some people's businesses, and with 1, 2, 3, 4 things, sometimes it needs a little bit of capital though. So that's the other thing. If it's capital, that's the shortfall for you. Maybe you need to do some crowdfunding or go raise some capital in some kind of professional fashion in New York with hedge funds or whatever. But the bottom line is that a lot of times startups, they just can't do it themselves. They creating amazing partnerships is generally a really good idea to get started.
Boom, folks, you just heard it, man. Kevin, appreciate you coming in today, folks. If you guys want to get free mentorship, go to kevinmentor.com. Definitely go get his book. It's out today, Mentor to Millions. He wrote that with Mark Tim, who's also wrote a bunch of stuff. I know I met Mark a couple times. I don't know Mark, but he seems like a freaking sharp son of a gun.
He's a good guy.
Good guy. And, obviously we did a little bit. I got to hang out with Mr. Zig Ziglar for a while. He's a great guy. So if he mentored, Mark, it sounds like, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Kevin,
Thanks
again,
for having me, Brad. I appreciate it, buddy.
dude, I might be sending you 1,000,000 shares of Lightspeed. Show me how to take this. We'll use this to both get us to the B mark, the billion mark.
Do it. I'm
Folks,
ready, buddy. Let's talk.
Folks, share
All
this
right.
out. If you don't need no help, maybe someone that you share this with, go share this with everybody. And Kevin, thanks for coming in. Until next time, kids, keep it real.